Kshama Sawant has been making waves across the city running as an open socialist for city council. In a sea of pro-business candidates. FSP has been very happy to support her campaign. It's called for a $10 an hour minimum wage. 15, God, what did I say? I did have a bad day with the bosses today. It's called for a $15 an hour minimum wage, anti-war stance, many other good things. So I wanted to take this opportunity to give Kshama a donation from Seattle Freedom Socialist Party of $100 for your campaign. It's very important. Workers need socialists like you out there running, showing that there is an alternative to capitalism, and it's very important what you're doing, so thank you. So I would like to, as you know, she's a candidate for City Council. I'd like to invite Kshama up. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen, and thank you so much to the FSP, Radical Women, and Organized Workers for Labor Solidarity for showing solidarity with our campaign. That's the most important message, I think, that should go out through this type of electoral campaign, that it's a little bit different than how corporate politicians run their campaign. Corporate politicians are fair weather friends, and as we've told all the labor unions, and I'll talk about the campaign a little bit, but as we've told all the labor unions, we want your support, but even if you don't endorse our campaign, we will be out there fighting for the workers you represent, whether we win the election or not. But think how much more powerful our fight together will be if we do have a socialist voice on the Seattle City Council. And so I think it's absolutely critical for the labor movement in Seattle to wake up and recognize that this is not a sectarian call for support. This campaign and the echo that it is striking with workers is not only a testament to how hard we're working. Of course we are. We're working 24/7 for the campaign. But it's really showing the change that is happening. And the topic that we have today, labor insurgency, this is happening not just nationally, but globally. And we have to get out of a parochial mindset that this is something happening in Seattle. It's not unique. It is not unique to Seattle. It is happening all over the world. And obviously the reason it's happening is because capitalism is creating the reasons for it. We're in one of the deepest crises that the system has ever been in. And if there's anything that we should be discussing, we should be thinking about when we wake up in the morning every day, it's this: where should we go from here as labor? So hopefully, I can add a few thoughts about that. I really appreciate Jason coming here. It's really, there's so many millions of people, organizers who are organizing labor every single day, doing the hard work, that day-to-day grunt work. That's what's really, that's what lies behind the strength of labor. If there is any strength left, we have to build that strength. And for that, we need people to make a genuine self-sacrifice. And I really thank Jason, and I think we owe him an applause for doing that work. And as he said, he's not becoming a millionaire on this job. So it takes a lot of sacrifice. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a member of Socialist Alternative, which is a nationwide organization of socialists and activists fighting for social and economic justice. We have branches in many of the major cities, in Minneapolis, Boston, New York City. And if you need proof that things are changing, then one of our newest and most vibrant branches is in Mobile, Alabama. So, think about that. I'm also a proud member of the American Federation of Teachers, Local 1789. And it's always interesting to me, I have trouble remembering many details, because you can only cram so much. But I almost never have trouble remembering my union locals number, because 1789 was, does anybody know what it was? French Revolution, exactly. I find that a happy coincidence. So why are we here? Obviously, something is happening. Obviously, something is changing. And it is so important to have the correct analysis of what's happening, because we just might miss the boat here. It's so critical for us to understand what is happening. And while not becoming complacent, it is so critical for us to understand that these are what we are seeing here, these rumblings that we hear. This is the sound of the door being opened, the political door being opened for the left, for socialists, for people who think that this is a rotten system and we need to change things. This door is opening now, and we have to occupy this space. And the word occupy is significant in so many ways, because the Occupy movement, a lot of people are decrying, Occupy is gone, what happened? But if you have a correct analysis, you will recognize that these are not isolated events. Occupy gave expression for the first time after decades to this simmering discontent and anger that lies beneath the surface but wasn't reaching the surface. Everybody is in their atomized box thinking, I'm frustrated with the system. How come I have a college degree and I can't get a job to pay my bills? Everybody is frustrated, and Occupy for the first time after many, many years gave expression to that. And if we are to take this movement somewhere, then we have to remember that there will be ebbs and flows. And so I think we are seeing the new steps that the movement is taking through all these eruptions of the labor movement. The fast food strikes starting from New York City are an enormous example of that. But I also wanted to talk about the Chicago Teachers Union struggle as well. I'm a teacher myself. I teach at Seattle Central Community College, and I can testify from personal knowledge the absolutely systematic and ruthless attacks that are happening on public education all over the country. And it's not something that some individual thought about. This is a systemic. This is a long-standing dream of the capitalist class to carry out this attack. And the reason it is happening right now under the Obama administration is something for us to think about, because how is it that this was so well orchestrated under a Democratic president, and how come it did not take shape in this form earlier? There are many factors, we can't be simplistic, but I think it has a lot to do with the fact that progressives, people on the left, liberals, who, whatever label you want to put on yourself, people are still caught in this, vice grip between the Republican and the Democratic Party, and, people are not able to break out of that. And people think, well, what can we do outside of this? The best you have is Democrats. Every time I table outside, with our socialist literature, and we talk about, the need to break from the Democrats, the need to have an independent representation, independent voice. Everybody, at least until 2 years ago, people would say, but there's nobody to vote for, what do we do? And I think that is partly the spirit in which we ran the campaign last year. I don't know how many of you know, but we ran a campaign for the State House of Representatives against the most notorious and most powerful legislator in the state, Frank Chop. He's the Speaker of the House. And we gave him the biggest run for the money he's ever gotten. We got 29% of the vote running as an open socialist, and that represents about 20,000 votes. And people told us, don't run against Frank Chop, don't run as a socialist, why don't you just hide it, why do you have to talk about socialism all the time? But I think events are bearing us out. Events are showing that the real barrier here is not the stigma against socialism. For one thing, that's not something that's etched in stone. Times are changing, people are becoming more open-minded, especially the youth. We have to turn towards people who haven't been part of the movement yet, but are seeing a bleak future in front of them, a combined future of student debt and low-wage jobs, and don't see a way around it. And this is not just an individual perception, this is not just a perception, this is reality. If you look at the kind of jobs that have been created since the recession started, 2/3 of the jobs that are being created are low-wage jobs. most of the jobs that are being created are low-wage jobs. So it's not something that is unique to Seattle. It's not something that's unique to this region. Everywhere you're seeing this broad-based attack on working people, most of whom are non-unionized at this point. And so it's really important for us to turn towards people who haven't been part of the movement yet, who haven't been jaded, and who want to fight for their own lives, and show them a way of how do we do that. And I wanted to give several examples in the little time that I have left, but one of the examples I wanted to give, because it's so close to home and it shows, how, Jason was talking about how we have to get out of the traditional mold. Last year, when we were running the campaign for State House, I am a part-time teacher in the community college system. I'm one of the 70% of the teachers who are part-time, who are never going to see a full-time job unless we actually, have a huge movement that, really dramatically changes the direction of things. And I teach in the economics department. And as you might guess, I don't have many fellow Marxists in the econ department. I can put it that way. And the administration, although it will not publicly acknowledge this, had me fired for obviously for political reasons, but they couched it in the form of, well, we're just not giving you a class this quarter. That's what makes low-wage workers and part-time workers, contingent workers so vulnerable. Employers don't even have to give a reason. But we could have accepted that and moved on. But we did not. We refused to accept that. We launched a public campaign against it, and we don't care what the administration's story is. We stick to the reality that that was a political retaliation for what I teach in my classes, and that I was being forced to use a textbook that is completely contrary to all academic conventions. And we formally launched the campaign in the morning of a day, and by the late afternoon I had an email from the dean saying, you have your job back. And I think that shows the power. That shows the power of what we can do. And certainly, we cannot claim that all battles will be that easy. Most battles are going to be very, very difficult and very, very hard, but it shows that we can win. And just to give you another example of what's happening around the world, just so that we can remember that this is not just about Seattle, so that we can be inspired that we're part of this whole global movement. Our organization, we're part of an international organization called the Committee for Workers International, and we have our sister organization in South Africa and many other countries. But South Africa is very remarkable because, the topic today is where do we go from here? And in South Africa, we've been part of a large movement that is organizing miners, and it's quite incredible. I mean, economically they are desperately poor, and they have been poor for decades. I mean, it's the kind of poverty that we don't actually see around us here. But politically, they are the shining example where we have to follow them, because they have just launched a big umbrella party called the WASP. I think they want it to sting. They want to sting the ruling class. So they've called it the Workers and Socialist Party. And I think that it sort of captures in a nutshell where we need to go. We need to have mass movements out in the street, and we need to create our own political voice in government, in the political establishment, so that we can really show the way for workers to break out of this stranglehold that we have here. And I think the Chicago Teachers Union struggle is also really instructive. I mean, again, going to the theme about, how can we break out of the traditional mold of, organizing, maybe that means different things to different people. But one of the things that stands out about the Chicago teachers is that when they were facing this huge attack from Rahm Emanuel, Obama's former right-hand man, one of the things they did was they launched a huge door-knocking operation where they went to people in the community and said, do you even know what's happening to us and how we are under attack? And if we are under attack, we can't really serve the children in the community. And the the resounding echo that they got. They got 50,000 people marching on the streets. They were not all teachers and students. They were people from the community who went there. And that sort of, it flies in the face of what we are told every day. Unions are demonized, labor is demonized, all these freeloaders, teachers are lazy and so on. But despite all that relentless attack from the corporate media, people understand that workers are actually on the right side, and I think we should use that as an example against pessimism. Doreen was right. We have to shake off the layers of pessimism from around us and understand that the working class is waiting to be organized, and it's our job to do that. We have to wake up and do that. And one of the things we can be doing is actually fighting, obviously ultimately for winning $15 an hour, our campaign is calling for $15 an hour. We have no illusions in our minds that simply running a campaign for city council is going to get us $15 an hour. It will be a huge step forward, but it is very clear that corporations and the politicians that represent those corporations are not going to give in lightly. They're obviously going to put up a huge struggle. They're going to fight tooth and nail against it. How do we fight back? We need mass movements. We need organized movements, and we need solidarity, meaning if fast food workers are on strike, then the truckers who deliver goods to the stores also have to go on solidarity strikes. And obviously the whole NLRB infrastructure comes into play here, because what does that mean? Does that mean we're breaking the law? What are we doing? So this requires a really deep-rooted conversation about how we are going to do this, and if it involves some dramatic steps like that are going to put individual workers at risk, how do we plan for that? How do we prepare for that? Going on strike is not a small thing. It requires a lot of preparation. It requires us to make sure that people's families are fed and clothed during the time that we are on strike. How do we actually do that? We need a massive layer of people to get involved in that kind of struggle to really talk about it. But needless to say, every success that our campaign for city council can have is a huge step forward. And so I appeal to you all. I know many of you are already supporting our campaign, and we really appreciate it. But we need to go much further. I would appeal to all of you sitting here to think, are there 10 people in my life that I can reach out to talk to them about this campaign, the reason they should pay attention to this, the reason they should donate to this, because this is the only campaign that is not taking any corporate donations. This is the only campaign in which the candidate has pledged that I will not take the $120,000 that city council members are paid. We will take only the average worker's salary, and all the rest will be poured into building social justice movements, and union struggles and the struggles of non-unionized workers are top of the list. So where I'll stop on this point. So where should we go from here? I think there are some clearly immediate steps that we should be taking that fall into the big hole of what we need to do. So solidarity with the Sakuma workers, that's absolutely critical for us to go. Even if it takes 2 hours to go, we have to go there, show our solidarity. Carlos here, who's going to speak next, was just fired by Subway, and that shows the courage. I mean, we should boo Subway, but we should applaud Carlos for the struggle, for the courage he has shown in doing this. And we should be organizing pickets and rallies jointly. Everybody here, we should be organizing pickets and rallies. Let's talk about that after this session is over. How can we do that? When can we go? Can we keep rolling pickets going? We also need to organize a mass rally for $15 an hour in the fall. We need a huge rally that will bring not just 200 people, but hundreds of people, if not thousands of people in Seattle. We know there is support out there. We need to convert that passive support into active support. So how can we do that? I appeal to you all to also show solidarity on that rally and help us organize that so that we can actually go from there. And one last tidbit I will leave you with. Our opponent, Richard Conlon, recently went on record saying that he does not support $15 an hour. And that's the magic of running a genuine socialist campaign. You can put them on the spot, because until then, they don't have any challenge. They don't have any reason to say that they support or don't support. You know, you put them on the spot and you expose their corrupt politics to the people. That's the way you do it. And, you know, hopefully our campaign is setting that example. And lastly, it's interesting that FSP has launched their new paper. Socialist Alternative has also launched its new paper. So please help us, you know, please read the paper. Please help us with, you know, doing this color is amazingly very expensive. And the faces that you see here, these are the 3 candidates we are running for city council in Boston, in Minneapolis, and in Seattle. So let's keep fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Kshama.